Hello, trading has closed on December 13th, 2023. As always, we'll do our disclaimer, go over our calls, and make some predictions. This is my trading plan for Thursday, which is December 14th, 2023. Remember, I can be wrong. Trade at your own risk. Here's what we said. We said I wasn't very good at predicting things on days when major announcements came out. That was certainly true today. Looked for the pattern with the early low, which we got, and tomorrow should have the early high. Number of things I was concerned about, but it didn't stop the big rally. We did have a target, 46.3195. I said if he didn't gap up smartly, it should print. We gapped up and hit a new high. I've said before, that's enough to be gapping up smartly, but it was only 2.5 points on the gap. But even though we hit a new high, it at this point sure didn't look too convincing. In any event, that didn't print. We have a new target from today, 46.4513. The rules say if we don't gap up, it should print. But this is pretty strong stuff, and I'm not certain that's going to work. It looks too far away for me. About twice a year, I get a cluster of targets which don't print on time. In the past, they've always printed at some time. It just doesn't have to be anytime soon. The two times when this is most likely to happen is a major change in trend or during a period of a strong impulsive move. So we'll say it's a strong impulsive move, and I wouldn't put as much confidence in these numbers, at least not printing on time. During the day, MEJT said ultimately higher prices would print, which they did. Said this tiny move down wouldn't stick. Now says this whole rally won't stick and gives us a target, 46.4513. Normally when you have a rally like this and you can't close over the midday high, it's weak unless you clear it early. Futures are already up. I don't know what will happen overnight, but clearing it early wouldn't surprise me. We'll just play the devil's advocate and go over what will happen if we don't. I'm not saying we won't. Well, I was looking for this to come back to one of these trend lines, but it doesn't look like it's going to do it. We have a new trend line. Connect these things, you ran right up to it. And the rule is either you gap over or the trend line wins. But again, futures are already up, so maybe we are going to gap over it in spite of non-confirmation from MEJT. Well, we've completed a major ABC down, which I've been saying since right at the low. This is an impulse up. I think it has a ways to go. But until today, I couldn't count 5 waves up. Now, just because this count works doesn't mean other counts won't. Doesn't mean the count's right. But this is the first time I can count 5 waves as complete. This is a 30-minute chart, and if that's 1 and that's 2, it's a fib relationship between 3 and 1, and another fib relationship between 1 and 5. So at least on the 30-minute chart, the fibs work. Let's take a look at this last move here from about a week ago. We'll switch to a 5-minute chart. And then you can count this as 1, 2, 3. 3 is twice 1. And if that's 4, 5 is equal to 61.8% of 1 through 3. And if you look at the last move up, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s, and those waves work too. And then if you switch to a 1-minute chart for this wave 5, I mean, you could even make that work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, you got balance of the waves. If we stop here, you got a big rally up to a trend line. If we stop here, I mean, I don't know what'll happen overnight. If we stop here, I can explain it. But I just don't feel like stepping in front of a move like that, especially when futures are already up. Now, if there is weakness, I can explain it, but I'm just not going to call it. I'm just going to say it would be ideal if we gapped up, and it's plausible for that to happen. So tomorrow's pattern has the early high. It doesn't tell us where we open. Typically, it's a rally day with a high and a final hour. Failure is a straight line drop. Now, there is a lower MEJT target. If we don't gap up smartly, the rules call for it to print. There are 2 times when these targets are prone to fail in a cluster, which is what we have now. One is near a major change in trend, and the other is during a period of strong impulsive moves. We seem to be in a period of a strong impulsive move, so it's possible we just continue higher and give us 3 failed targets in the last 3 days. Again, the system's 21.5 years old, and these failed targets in the past have always printed. They just don't always print when you want them to. Such clusters happen about twice a year, and eventually the targets print. I'm not a fan of standing in front of strong moves like this one, but we did rally into trend line resistance and complete 5 waves up. NASDAQ McClellan oscillator is under a slower Bollinger Band, and if it reverses, it gives a sell. Now, the first move after FOMC was up. It implies the next major move is higher, and that today's rally is not the end of that move. The only issue is if we correct first. It would be ideal if we gapped over today's high. Futures are already up, so that's entirely plausible. And if we gap up, I don't see any reason for it to stop. But if tomorrow is weak, and I'm not saying it will be one way or the other, we could drop as far under the announcement price as the 63.5 points we moved over it. That doesn't change the long-term picture. Typically, when you get the FOMC announcement, you get 3 waves, one up, one down, last one up, and each one's bigger than the last. So once this ends, according to that rule, this is 63.5 handles, you would drop more than that under this, but I'm just not going to call it. I'm going to tell you that's what usually happens, and I can tell you if we don't gap up, I can explain the drop, but I'm just not going to call it. This looks too strong to me. If we do stop here, I can always change my mind. If we don't get the gap up, we start down. Looks like it has conviction. I think you can use this as a stop for a short position, but I'm not recommending a short position. This looks pretty good so far. And it's a pattern with the early high, and that's today's call.